I hope to come through the experience having gained an experience I didn't have before, that I'm going to learn and grow from. And even though there are days that I'd like to spend all day in my room, I can't do that. And the role that has been carved for me, that I have carved for myself, that was a niche that somehow needed to be filled, and I was there at the time, and it filled it to a certain extent. I can't walk away from that. I'm committed to that.
It was very important for me to have every character come from the reality of what they're feeling, what they experience, their heart. And so, of course, I opened it up for anyone who had a disability or didn't. So I just have to tell you that the people, most of the actors that came in, I would say almost all of them, who auditioned for one of the characters who had a disability, it was incredible to see what they thought about in the sense of someone who's disabled. And it looked like a Saturday Night Live sketch gone awry. I mean, it was unbelievable what they thought. So more and more, I went towards someone who had a disability and would go into themselves and find that place and bond with the character. They weren't automatically the character just because they had a disability. So there was work of acting to do. And it was very exciting, so I can understand when you want someone with a disability, but you then have to teach them to act.
I can play a character with autism better because I know my own skills and how to succeed at it. According to getting opportunities to act and practice, well, that was my idea, that was my decision. You know, because I want to move on with something where I can be like a big success. I believe this is one of my best decisions I ever made up for myself. You know, I decided to get into like extracting for my future and for my part. And you know, it just gets me going somewhere that I've never been before. The hardest thing for acting for me is, you know, that there may be some certain skills I want to take up in further acting.
If we're taking a look at an actor with autism that may be playing a character that, with regard to thinking how that individual as a person, not as a character, has progressed in their life, asking them to go back to a place where they may have been several years ago, it can be a challenge, but also I think it could also be looked at to them as a therapeutic tool, because they can then see, this is where I am now, and look how far I have come from where I was 8 to 10 years ago. It's very similar to a young woman that used to be at the studio here. She has Asperger's syndrome, and she, at several different times, was asked to play characters that, for lack of a better definition, you know, lower functioning or less independent than she was. And she would look at that as an opportunity to kind of go back and explore where she was at that time and process that, and then use it in her life to say, well, look how far I have come in the past several years.
The music that Graham Streeters has chosen to accent normal folk is perfect for the piece, because Hauschka's work is a few bubbles off plumb from what we're used to, and it goes along with the general theme of the film.
I had the idea to manipulate the tones of the piano just to get a kind of orchestra out of the piano without using any technique. I'm pasting stuff on the strings, like metal, tape, plastic, different sorts of material. And when you hit the hammer hit the strings, in between the hammer and the strings, there is some material. And then you hear suddenly the tone of the piano, but you also hear like a and that's, for example, the hi-hat. And then you hear like a boom, and then you hear like boom.
we have to stretch. And we don't stretch by continuing the ordinary, the banal. We stretch by incorporating all the advances of different techniques. And Hauschka's music really illustrates that.
It's quite a story that is very, well, it's soaking you in. I really love that. And I think the theme of having an autistic person disturbing the world of older people who are already set up for their last years and maybe thinking about what can we do with our leftover money or whatever, and that being confronted with Dora is a great idea, and I think it gives so much to the story that I was really inspired when I was hearing it, and actually the inspiration I will see when I start working on music for it.
An actor, in reliving, having memory recall of certain situations so that you can exhibit with confidence a certain reaction, can also be quite a big therapy and benefit from the hindsight that's employed.
I think the challenge with regard to representing actors with disabilities in the whole system and in the entertainment field is to educate casting directors, producers, and writers with regard to the abilities of these developmentally disabled individuals and get them past that fear that, oh my gosh, maybe there's going to be some very, very special considerations that have to be made when working with this population. When they come in for auditions, they're completely prepared. They're trained actors with disabilities. So instead of having to hire a non-disabled actor to play a role of someone with a disability, they are now getting a trained actor with that automatic sense of what it is to be someone who has a disability, because that is their life every day.